Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Laugh Lab and guests. I love having guests because a lot of people, I like to meet new Toastmasters and some that I know from before, like I do know Bob. And so it's nice that we have guests. So thank you very much for coming, and you're welcome back anytime to visit. And like Mary said, to join. Tonight's meeting looks like it's going to be fun. I don't see Helen showing up yet, so I'm going to make a little switch in the agenda and put Mary first. If Helen does show up and come, she can be after Mary so that we don't hold up anything. Yes, Kyle.
Karen was supposed to be second evaluator. Now she's going to be first evaluator evaluating Mary. Just checking.
Yes, as far as I know, the evaluators will switch also. So
Okay.
who was the other evaluator? Was it
Me.
It was you, Kyle. Okay. Yeah. So Karen will be the first evaluator. You'll be the second one if Ellen does show up. And I want to introduce our roles for tonight. Mary did say that sometimes things are different, but we do have a grammarian tonight, it looks like, and that is Bill, I think. So Bill, what are you going to do tonight as grammarian?
Well, tonight I'm going to be looking for the crutch words, especially. Of course, that's one of our things that we do as Toastmasters, but I'm also going to be especially looking for colorful words and phrases that people use in their presentations that cause memory, make a memorable event. I'm going to also suggest that we have a word of the day to give everybody a chance to think on their toes and work it into whatever they're doing, either the speech or their evaluations. And today's word of the day that I selected is lambast. To lambast something or someone is to criticize them very harshly. Lambast is also sometimes used as a synonym of beat meaning to assault. Of beat meaning to assault, like bam, bam, assault and battery kind of thing. I'm going to put that in the chat. I thought it would work out really well because we have very experienced speakers tonight, and we have lots of opportunities to not lambast anybody during their evaluations. I'll put the word and the definition in the chat.
And Phil, can you make sure Mary doesn't do too much exaggeration tonight?
I will pay especially close attention to Mary's exaggerations.
Thank you very much, Phil. And then I think our timer was Karen, right? Karen, what are you going to do tonight for us?
It's me.
Oh, I'm not sorry, Karen, not Karen. Emmy.
Okay. All right, so I will be putting up the cards that tell you when you have matched the time, minimum time, and hit the middle and hit the maximum. So when you come to the minimum time for your speech, you'll see that. And when you hit the midway point, you'll get the yellow. And when you come to the end, you'll get the red, and then you better hurry up and finish.
Thank you very much. And are the evaluators 2 to 3 minutes tonight? Are the evaluators?
Actually, I believe you gave each evaluator 3 to 5 and then a 5-minute round robin after that.
Great. Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think that we're doing okay here. It's been a while since I've been Toastmaster, so I'm like having to figure out what I'm doing right and wrong. So we're going to do Mary as the first one. Her evaluator is Karen. Sorry, Karen, I tried to get you to be the timer. So Karen, what are you going to look for tonight in Mary's speech?
Well, tonight, Mary's speech is preparing to speak professionally, so I will look at it as part of like a keynote for a professional presentation and how she uses story and humor to do that. And Where I've seen things evolve in her speech, I will highlight that as well. And Mary, if there's anything else specifically you would like me to look for, just let me know.
Thank you very much, Karen. A longing for belonging. Many people say the best thing about Toastmasters are the people they meet and get to know through their speeches and table topics. It's a grand feeling to walk into a meeting and know you belong. And the more diverse your club is, the more people will feel they belong. Mary Morrison, DTM, past international director, will share tips for creating a belonging space that welcomes everybody. Mary, take it away.
I went to the gym recently. I had finished my recumbent bike workout per my personal trainer. And then on the advice of my physical therapist, I was going to try the hip abduction machine. Now, she had given me a picture of the machine, so I chose the right one. And guided by the picture, I used that to find the machine that said hip abduction. It didn't look quite like it looked in the picture, because the difference between a 2-dimension and a 3-dimension is the amount of space it takes up. And how in the world was I going to get my body from the outside of all of the contraption into the inside on the seat, and then be able to apparently abduct my hips at a 10-pound weight? Oh, Toastmasters, I was clueless. I was an imposter. Clearly, I did not belong in that gym. I wanted to belong. I knew it would be healthy for me. I struggled and looked around furtively. I didn't want anybody lambasting me for my awkwardness and lack of belonging at the gym. Another look around, and I tried attempt number 1 to get on the machine. I couldn't go over those pads. They were too high. I would have had to physically lift my leg. I'm a little vertically challenged. I couldn't go behind because there was too much of the machine in the way. I took the frontal assault and scooched my way between the beginning of the machine, the edge of the abductors, and where the seat was, and plopped myself down. And then I noticed there were some other markings on there that may have let me know how to actually use the machine. But at this point, I was just grateful I had made it there. Maybe I did belong after all. A few abductions later, I gave up because I had looked around and noticed the gym was still empty enough that no one will notice how awkwardly I removed myself from that machine. Have you ever walked into some place where you just didn't feel that you belonged there? For me, it was always, say, a hardware store. There's something very intimidating about a hardware store. When I walked in with this little part that I was supposed to find, and they always had more questions than I had answers for. For my husband, it may have been a nail salon. Why in the world was he there for that? You know, at Toastmasters, we do a remarkable job getting people to feel that this is a place where they belong. This is a secure, safe environment in which we can take risks. Unlike the gym, unlike a hardware store for me, or for me personally, a group of engineers. Any of you here engineers? I find them incredibly intimidating. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Lee, for being brave enough to raise your hand. Now I'll be terrified the rest of the night. I'm kind of joking. But Toastmasters, we work really hard at having a welcoming environment. Just think about all the mechanics and the logistics we do to have a welcoming meeting. If it's online, we want to know who our guests are. how did you hear about us tonight? What are you hoping for? We want to give you opportunities to participate. Write your name in, keep your camera on. If we're on site in person, together in a room, we make sure that the room is well set up, it's well marked. We do those things really well. I have a couple of suggestions for how we could do it even better. And as I go through all of the areas where I think we could be a little more welcoming, I'll give us some tips of where we could do a little bit better. So the mechanics and the logistics of it. I've been to a meeting where we had a lot of guests come in and not knowing the protocol of the meeting space, they automatically took space at the edge of the room because that's what we left for them. Better in our meetings is when we leave an empty seat at the table. And when a guest comes in, we let them know, this is your place right here at the table. And our members move to the outer seats. Far more welcoming environment. My second tip is if you have a lot of guests coming in, or even if it's just one guest coming into your meeting, and they know nothing about Toastmasters, stop worrying so much about the protocol. It's okay to be a happy clapper, but remember, they don't know why you're doing that unless you explain it. So take a little time to let them know this is a place where everybody has a chance to feel comfortable and feel as though they belong. Those are the kind of mechanical, physical, logistical things. Again, I think most Toastmasters clubs do those remarkably well. There are some deeper dimensions of belonging that I want to speak to tonight. Biggest category is probably the demographics of belonging. I have a wealth of belonging factors. I am in the USA specifically. I am white. I am female. I am Christian. I am a US born citizen. English is my natural language. There may be a few factors that have gone against me over time, but those are huge ones. It means literally the culture is built around helping me feel comfortable because as a baby boomer, I've helped create the culture. This isn't true for everybody who comes to Toastmasters meetings. So a couple of examples of ways in which I think we could be even more welcoming to people who may not know that Toastmasters is a place where they are totally welcome. A few weeks ago, I was at a Toastmaster meeting. We had a guest speaker. As we introduced her afterwards, and she spoke, lovely, lovely job on inclusivity in leadership. And afterwards, she remarked how wonderful it was that we had taken the time to correctly pronounce her name. And why that mattered so much to her. It was not a name most of us were familiar with. In taking the time to pronounce it correctly, it was a strong acknowledgement to her that this was a place that cared about who she was, that was willing to invest in who she was. She said, it may not mean much to you to mispronounce it once or twice, but for me to hear it over and over again, for people to remark about my name as though there's something so unusual about it that they don't get how to pronounce it, I just get the sense that I don't belong here. It's a small moment for most of us Toastmasters. It's a huge moment in her life to have received that acknowledgement. Names matter. I think people never mind when you ask them how to correctly pronounce their name. It matters that you do make that effort. So make that effort. I use my old grammar markings to make sure I put the emphasis on the right syllable as a friend would have said, or emphasis on the right syllable, as others might say. There's lots of other demographics that I could use and examples I could use to share with that would show you why this matters. Once was a member of a club, and it was a city club in the US. Again, no, in government operations, typically we don't have prayers at the beginning of our meetings. In government buildings, we often don't do the Pledge of Allegiance in our meetings. But we often chose themes that are the meetings that our members never really thought about. Till one year, we had a member whose faith was of the Jewish tradition join us. And when we chose our theme Easter, he said, have you ever done Passover? Why choose Easter? Why focus on Christmas? And I realized so many of our traditions revolved around being a Christian without even thinking about it and what impact it might have on someone else. The demographics, when we're part of the majority culture, you don't really think about it. I can go anywhere with my passport and a credit card and be assured that these are both treasured things and I'm not going to have to worry about it. That's not true for many people. So we honor our immigrants and don't assume that because someone doesn't have English as their primary language, it doesn't mean they aren't intelligent. I've seen that clubs make that mistake also. And here, highly educated people come in with speaking multiple languages, which I continually admire because I can barely conquer English, and find they're professionals who have emigrated from another part of the world or outside of the US and are there to not necessarily be better speakers of the English language, but gain the confidence that they need, just like all our goals are. Again, it's all about assumptions. A special category of demographics that I want to call out a little bit and share is that of physical abilities and those of us who might have maybe a visual physical disability, but maybe not always. I remember, and now this is a cringe moment for me, I remember being so well meeting at a Toastmaster meeting one time. Fairly young man came in a wheelchair, and it was clear it was an electric wheelchair. He was hand operating it, through his the device on the chair. And I introduced myself to him. And as we got to speak, I had the opportunity to ask him, what had brought him about in the wheelchair. And he explained to me he'd had an accident in playing a rugby game as a young man of 21. And he joined Toastmasters because he wanted it to be part of his social world. And he realized being paralyzed from the chest down, he was limited in a lot of the activities that he would like to otherwise engage in. I said, oh, thank you. And he was a lovely conversation with him. And it came time for lunch and I was sitting with him and I said, well, can I help you get something from the table? He said, yeah, that would be lovely. What would you like? He went, looked at it, picked out some things, including some fruit that he wanted. So I put some fruit in the bowl and brought him his fork and his knife and put it down, and then realized he was really struggling with his fork in cutting the fruit up or trying to cut it into bite-sized pieces. Now, it took me a while to have honestly enough courage to say, A, I made a mistake, and B, can I help you with that? And finally, because I was so embarrassed that having not even realized to begin with that he might not be able to use both hands to use a knife and a fork, that bite-sized chunks would probably be better for him. Finally broke that ice, worked it all out. But it gave me a real insight into both getting over my own sense of embarrassment at not quite knowing what to do and asking what kind of help would be help for him, and then following through on it and actually doing it. I have a niece who is profoundly disabled. She is nonverbal. Her vocal cords did not develop, part of a syndrome that she has. So I've had a chance to talk to my sister over the years and say, what's the easiest, what's the best thing? How do you get people to relate to Margaret? Because she can be kind of scary with her sounds. And she said, I really love it when people ask me what's happening with Margaret and how do we communicate best? And it gives her the opportunity. Otherwise, there's always a distancing. And the last thing we want when we want people to have a feeling of belonging is to have the distancing, that if we're uncomfortable and don't know what to do, we can too often place between ourselves and another. So the physical abilities and disabilities people might have are really important to acknowledge and work to getting better. If someone's hard of hearing, where do they sit in a meeting? How do you face them in a meeting? How slowly do you speak? As I age and my ears deteriorate, they age also. I find it much more difficult to understand younger people who speak at a much more rapid pace. And they don't realize it because they're used to being around other younger people. But my ears don't always pick up what they're saying. And I have to ask them what. And it's not necessarily that I can't hear. The volume might be okay, but I just don't get the pace at which they're speaking. Same is true for people for whom English isn't their primary language. If we slow it down a bit, not get louder, but slow it down a bit, it's a much more welcoming environment. I recently had the opportunity to participate with a team of Toastmasters who are part of a neurodiverse leadership group. They asked me to do some work with them because of some stuff they're trying to work out with Toastmasters International. And it was the most welcoming Toastmaster meeting I have ever been to. It went completely off script from what they had expected. And the reason it was so welcoming was because they had maybe 25 people there. And most of them had had some kind of an experience with being unwelcome or lambasted for their neurodiversity. Whether that neurodiversity showed up as autism, as anxiety, as depression, as some kind of social phobia, they had all experienced job interviews, situations with their employers, coworkers, where they felt less than. And sometimes to the point they were afraid to explain what their needs were, what accommodations they might need in order to do the job. It had nothing to do with their ability to do their work. It had everything to do with their fear of really belonging and being thought that they were less than if they truly brought their needs forward. This group exposed me to the entire world of just how much more welcoming Toastmasters could be when we slow down a bit and recognize that sometimes people can't have their camera on because it terrifies them enough just to be part of our group. That sometimes people won't raise their hand or aren't ready to speak because it's enough that they're in the room. That it's better to ask them what kind of needs they might have and answer their questions carefully and understand when they're so process focused what that's going to mean for the kind of support materials that they might need or the interactions they might need to have with their evaluator or their evaluator team or their mentor. I loved it, and I realized I have a lot more to learn. And of course, the greatest area where belonging really operates is with our very diverse life experiences. I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting how much engineers terrify me. I went to college so many years ago, but it was a predominantly male school full of engineers. I knew I didn't belong, and truly it's taken me a lot of years to realize this is a group of people who think in a very process-focused way, and I'm way on the other extreme of a lot of ambiguities. And so I can see now how it's like oil and water sometimes. But I truly appreciate the engineers because they help me discipline my thinking. So I've got over the trauma of walking into a room of engineers, which I had to do many times at work, and come to appreciate that they too want a place to belong. Sometimes they won't admit it's in Toastmasters, but all of our life experiences that we each bring to the table, and we don't know where people are coming from when they come into Toastmasters. So the best thing that we can do is to let people know that Toastmasters is a place that epitomizes where we can fulfill being our best, making the investment in ourselves, making the investment in others. We can fulfill our longing to belong in Toastmasters. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mary. One thing I can say is I really totally get belonging, and I know what it is. I understand it a lot, and most of it because of where I stand in my life. But also I learned a lot and opened my eyes a lot that I really didn't know belonging as much as I thought I did, and you really helped me with that. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I will take advice of what you said and hopefully use it to help me and help others. Okay, so we'll move on to our next speaker tonight, and that's Helen. And you probably figured out, Helen, that we moved you to second speaker because you weren't right here yet. So I appreciate you, understanding that. And your evaluator tonight is Kyle. Kyle, what are you going to be looking for tonight in Helen's speech?
Well, Helen was going to be speaking, is going to be delivering her keynote to a district in Japan. So I know one of her intentions is to inspire, and I think she also has a little bit of an intention to amuse. So I'm going to be looking for inspiration and amusement. And I encourage you to do so also, because remember, we're having a round robin.
Great, thank you very much, Kyle. Embark on a transformative journey with our Toastmasters member, Helen Herr, who rose from the ashes of adversity to become a beacon of resilience and leadership. In the riveting speech, Forward Together, you'll discover how to harness the power of dreams, embrace the storm, and emerge stronger. Learn how to shift your mindset, build a supportive community, and find your mission. This is more than a speech. It's a call to action. It's an invitation to step into your power, face your storms, and move forward together. Thank you, Helen, and we look forward to your speech tonight.
Thank you, Cherry. My speech title is Together Forward. It is time. It is time to be a leader. It is time to take your leadership to the next level. It is time to go forward, and let's do it together. Hello, LMS Toastmaster clubs. It's time. And everyone said, oh, these are all uncertain times. But I have one secret to share with you. It has always been uncertain times. We may feel insecure, but all we have to whisper to ourselves is, this is the time. When typhoon hit village and affects those peoples, these are uncertain time. When AI changed our way of working and company decided to shift their investment focus, these are uncertain time. And when the global pandemic hit us all as a global village, these were uncertain time. In these times, we may feel afraid, we may feel insecure. We look for help. We look for advice. We look for heroes. But sometimes it's difficult to find heroes, right? Let's look at these photos of modern heroes. We have all seen some of these movies, right? They are Bilbo Baggins from The Lord of Wing. They are Luke Skywalkers to try to free the galaxies in Skywars, and Iron Man. And we also have these real life heroes. These are Eric Yan, the founder and CEO of Zoom, who grow their daily participants for 300 times during the pandemic. These are also Brian Tracy, who is the CEO and founder of Airbnb, whose business was hit hardly during the pandemic because they are doing basically a traveling business. But within 6 months, he turned around the profitability and making his companies a huge success in IPO. And also Whitney, who becomes a very successful and the first female billionaire during the pandemic. And we also have heroes in Toastmasters, those heroes in our class, in our district levels. But the most important hero of all is the hero we look into the mirror. Sometimes it's difficult to see the one in the mirror as the hero. We don't take our life as journey. I too did not take my journey before I joined Toastmasters. And then after I joined Toastmasters, I look my life into a lens, like looking through a microscope or a telescope. Now, would you like to spend a few minutes with me? Would you allow me to take you through a journey of your own lives to find a hero within you? In order to do that, we need to understand there are 3 key pillars that hold you up above others. For every hero, we might look for these 3 key pillars along the journey. There are 3 M's. The first M is membership. And the second M is mindset. And third M is mission. Let's take a first look at the first M, membership, which means to find an environment and a group of people that support you. We cannot do this alone. You have heard this American proverb, haven't we? When you go fast, you go along. When you want to go far, what's that? Yes, the answer is, when you want to go far, go together. Toastmasters allows us go together. Let's look at those heroes in the movie. See, all of them have people around them who support them. You know, like the Bilbo Baggins with his fellows in the Lord of the Wind. And Luke Skywalker was supported by his mentor during the Star Wars when he trying to free the galaxies. And also Iron Man with his aviders. When I was a young professional, I was as certain as I could be. I knew my path and I knew how to get there. I was working for a Fortune 500 company has an optimistic future. I had a boss who knew me well and knew how to get best out of me. But then it all changed. A new boss, a new project, and a sudden request. I feel like I was walking on the thin ice and ice broken. My boss became angry, so she took away my bonus. My once bright future seems to have taken a downward turn. For younger myself, this was an uncertain time. The storm surrounded me. Because of this personal darkness, I went to the Toastmaster meeting for the first time. And then I feel surprised I was surrounded by a group of people who want me to succeed. And I did achieve success in doing speeches. Every time when I finish speech, I receive a bunch of warm and enthusiastic and encouraging feedback, which challenged me to be the better. And I even joined the speech contest and did well. I made it to the district levels within 18 months. Now I could feel I'm moving through this personal darkness. With every moment of success, my confidence grew. And this was because the group in my peer that helped me to elevate my game. I was in turn trying to help my new members. With the encouragement from my fellow, I became a club officer and committed in reading the skill levels of my club. Now, I challenge you, in your personal darkness, find a peer groups that help you to grow out of your comfort zone. Find a position of leaderships that help you to grow new skills and allow you to help others. Find a mentor who challenge you and help you to transfer your skills outside of Toastmasters. And Toastmasters offers you the opportunities to do all three of these. And the second M is mindset. Every success comes with a new perspective. Are you ready to embrace it? The storm serves as a catalyst. It can destroy us and also can get best out of us. Life is not happening to us. Life is happening for us. Are we willing to embrace a new mindset to see the opportunities? The opportunity can be in many forms. It could be projects, it could be challenges, and it could be storms. Yes, storms. The famous Japanese writer Hakuki said, when you come out of the storm, you will not be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about. Have you heard about that? When you walk out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That is what this storm is all about. I had another storm coming at me at that fateful spring of year 2020. By then, I achieved a level of success as a company speaker, as a successful leader. I made my club to be distinguished, area to be distinguished, division to be distinguished. I thought I knew everything to make my district become distinguished. And that's when I became a district director in the year of 2019. And then, you know what happened, right? COVID. When I heard about this at the first time, I thought, damn it, how could it happen in my year? In February 2020, the city of Wuhan was locked down. In March, around the globe, millions were losing their life, millions were losing a family, millions were losing their humanity by locking at home and lost the connections to others. This was an uncertain time. On March 5th, 2020, when the membership data was publicized on the TR website. What? Our district lost 1,000 members. I sat in my isolation and thought, come on, this is not what I had signed up for. I have signed up for to be the world #1 district. I have signed up for the happy and growing club. I have signed up for the vibrant club meeting just like this one. And I have signed up for the most successful district conference. We had our theme chosen, we have our keynote chosen, we have artwork ready, and we make everything ready. But at that moment, in that year, I really didn't know what to do to turn the district around. I feel loneliness, powerless, and hopeless. I was thinking about giving up. A few days later, a club in Wuhan, the epicenter, called me and told me that their members were so freaking out of losing their family members. I really didn't know what to do, but I said, I will be there with you. I went to their online meeting. The meeting atmosphere was dark and depressed. I looked into the fear of their eyes. And all of a sudden, a question jumped off my mind. Hey guys, what would you like to do when this pandemic's over? I like to eat hot noodles with jasmine. I want to invite you guys to visit my new home. A guy slowly opened his camera and said, I want to do my haircut so I could be handsome again. His answer elicited a hearty laughter, and more and more people start to share their creative ideas. The meeting atmosphere becomes warmer and warmer. And a member suddenly shouted, hey guys, why don't we sing a song together, shall we? What a brilliant idea. Towards the end of the meeting, I was amazed looking at those smiling faces. And 1 week later, to my surprise, this club, Dying Clubs, renewed all of its membership. We all plan what we want to achieve in our life, but sometimes stuff happened. What could we do with that? We plan for our children to be a doctor, but he chose to be a public speaker. What would we like to do? We plan as a professional, we plan to advance our career, and then AI replace our way of working. And what will we do? We plan to be a director of the district who can easily slide into the success, and then pandemic happens. What will we do? So I grabbed the lesson which I learned from that club, and I gathered my district officers and suggest we reach out to more of the clubs and make personal contacts through Zoom. By June 2020, with 500 hours phone call with the club made by our district has earned back the 1,000 members we lost. And Toastmasters allow us to change our mindset from me to we. By looking at our actions, we changed from thinking about ourselves, myself, to ourselves. And we may join Toastmasters thinking about what Toastmasters can do for us. But soon, we are able to make this mental shift towards what I can do for others. Like the previous US President, John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what? What's that? Ask what you can do for your country. He said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Through my leadership experience, I realized that I grew as a person when I give more to this organization than it was giving to me. I realized I had something to give. And it was the gift that we all shared. We have the ability to give to others, and it's empowering. How many of you have already experienced this shift in mindset? How many of you have helped others in your club? How many of you have how many of you have helped others in your area, division, or district? I hope each of you get a chance to experience how powerful you can really be when you give back to our community. You become a hero. As a hero, we do not run away from the storm. Instead, we gather our teams and help others to navigate the storms. And that brings to the third M, which is mission. Now, what I have experienced have continued to shape me. I realized I can help others to navigate their storms. And I also found when I stay in my comfort zone, I'm not growing myself. Can you recognize those heroes in the movie? Let me share my screen again. Yeah, like this wise wizard in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf, and also this mentor who teach our hero in Star Wars the new skills called Yoda, and also Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, helping our heroes in this movie as well. And all this helped me to clarify my role. Sometimes I'm not a hero, but the one who helped hero. And the famous American psychologist Maslow created this Maslow hierarchy of needs. At the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, the desire to become the most that one can be. Part of this was not just to see how far we can go in our own hero's journey, but to understand how we can fulfill our innermost needs by playing different roles in the hero's journey. Sometimes we are the hero who struggles through challenges on the journey. Sometimes we are the team who supported our hero on the journey. And the other times, we take our experience and wisdom to guide others. And that is the mission. It was one of my visits to our district suffering clubs that helped me learn who I am going to be for the rest of my life. I was there in the middle of a group of Toastmasters who had lost their jobs due to the pandemic. They were suffering. They were fearful. I feel their plan. I looked into their eyes and I could see the storm. I would then invited every member to share his personal stories in breakout groups, and everyone took his turn And a few minutes later, a lady stood up with all her tears in her eyes and said, I love Toastmasters. I need you. We then realized he lost her jobs a few weeks ago, but he's so afraid of telling her families. So he pretended to going for work every day, but ended up spending the whole day in the public library. She lived in a hard way. But when she got a chance to share her experience with Toastmasters and got listened by her Toastmaster members, she felt so much released. She turned around and hugged her fellows to celebrate the new energy. She was able to walk out of her storm now. And without anyone saying anything, people start to hug each other, and the room becomes a room of hugs. When the club president and I hugged tightly with each other, I feel something was melt in my heart. Everyone is longing for belonging. We're all longing to be seen, to be loved, to be listened. And this is particularly true when we are in a dark moment. Toastmaster is way more than a speaking training organization. We are a community. We are a community of leaders. We are a community of listeners. We are a community of humanity. Isn't that what we're looking for at this moment? Isn't that why we needed Toastmasters at this moment? And isn't that the true mission of Toastmasters? The club came alive. People came alive. I came alive. My actions had a power to impact our clubs and members. What awakening the power? It wasn't the pursuit of personal achievement, but rather the inspiration of Toastmasters' mission. I realized that I can only tap into my full potential by serving a goal that is larger than myself. And this is the only and best way to live in a meaningful life. By moving through this storm, I realized that our personal awakening can impact more people. And I want to transfer this power to more leaders, to awaken their self-awareness and to allow them to showcase their life potentials through achieving their teams and organization goals. This has become my personal mission. So this is the story that each of us had a chance to write. This is a journey that each of us had a chance to walk. And this is the impact that each of us had a chance to make. But don't leave it to chance, because the life-changing power is not due to the luck, but due to our hard work and alignment of our personal mission to help those around you. I challenge you to measure your success in Toastmasters, not by the number of speeches you did, but by the number of lives you changed. Measure your success not by the pathways completed, but instead measure success by the number of people you change their pathways in life. Measure your success by the number of people you motivated to be leaders, which then in turn motivate others. And you are no longer a survivor of the storm. You are the storm. A storm of kindness, a storm of generosities, a storm of positivities, a storm that gives life to a dry desert. You will nourish those around you who lost hope. You will quench the thirst of those who are thirsty for success. And you will draw people with your generosities and positivities. And this is the mission of Toastmasters. This is my mission, and this is your mission. I see a storm on the horizon, and I want you to embrace it. The storm will bring opportunities for membership. The storm will bring us for a change in mindset. And the storm will give you the opportunity to grow through your personal mission. And let me be honest with you, it's not easy. Membership is not easy. Leadership is not easy. Following our passion, following our mission is not easy. It's a storm. It takes courage. It takes hard work. It takes a commitment to elevate the memberships around you. It takes determination to change our mindset and stick with it. It takes guts to talk with a stranger and invite them to our Toastmaster meeting. It takes time and efforts to mentor others. It takes love to encourage past members to come back to our clubs. And to all these challenges, there will be resistance. People will look at you with their doubts and fear in their eyes. And we have to look back at them and holding them to our mission within our heart and say, embrace the storm and let's move forward together. Go back to our Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you very much, Helen. That was wonderful. It really helped me to remember that I have the power within me. We all have power within us, whatever our power is. And that's what gets us through the storms. And we always come out the other side ready to keep going and move forward together. And together is the best way to do it, because we can't live our life and do anything without having others to do it together. So thank you very much for speaking tonight on that. And if you're going to be giving the speech here in the future at your district, I wish you well with doing it, and hopefully you get some good feedback tonight. At this time, I believe it's time for a break, a 5-minute break. And thank you very much, Cynthia, our Zoom master for tonight. Appreciate it very much. Hope you all had a good quick break and ready to go into our next part of our meeting, which is our general evaluation portion. And tonight I want to introduce our general evaluator for the night, and that is Lee. Take it away, Lee.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster Cheryl, fellow Laugh Lab Storymasters, and our welcome guest, Joel. In a Toastmaster meeting, we evaluate everything. And right now we're going to evaluate our speakers. And our first speaker was Mary Morrison, and her evaluator is Karen McNamara. Take it away, Karen. 3 to 5 minutes for our timer.
Thank you very much, Lee, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest tonight. And most especially Mary. Mary, it's always an honor and a difficult task to evaluate you. You have so many strengths, Mary, and I'm going to highlight some of those and then give you a couple of ideas of how you might even try some new things with this particular speech. You are a very, very strong storyteller. This particular speech involved multiple stories. You had your story on your bike, your Toastmaster meeting, when things went awry with someone that had a disability, someone that had a fast pace in speaking, and you gave us some education around tips for meetings. So you had many different stories within. Each of those stories were distinct and easy to follow. They each had really good points to them. And I watched the audience as you were speaking, and I saw engagement through nods and smiles and like, I can identify with that. And I think that's a real powerful thing, especially in a Zoom setting. You asked me to look at transitions and how did you do in your transitions? And you actually grabbed me nicely with many of your transitions, examples, when you said, I'm going to now move deeper into belonging. Okay, that told me, all right, I'm going to hear even a deeper interpretation of what we can do to belong and to ensure belonging. You talked about early life experience, and it immediately brought me to a different place. And now I'm going to go into an early experience. You said, oh, and this was a cringe moment. Okay, that brought me into my next story about, oh, something's not going to go the way you wanted it to go. Those I thought were all very good transitions that helped me go through. I did not feel like you were jumping from one thing to another and they didn't link. I thought you did a nice job with that. You provided us with some good education up front too. I thought that was well done because you gave us some very specific things that we can do to make someone in a Toastmaster meeting feel more welcomed, belonging, that names are important, things like that. Those were all, I think, very positive. You also took into account how Toastmasters is evolving, and we now have international audiences and we have different groups, and we can't just think about America. We have to think about the world and how we can belong regardless of where we're from. So I thought that was also very powerful. So now what can I recommend when you have all of these strengths in your speech? A couple of things that came to mind for me. One was, I wasn't exactly sure, and maybe I missed it in your intro, but I wasn't exactly sure who my audience was or where this was going to be used or how it was going to be used. And that, if I missed that, I apologize. But I was looking to understand exactly who you were speaking to or who we were supposed to be in the audience. And if you set that stage, then I know, okay, this is where it's going to be used. So when I give you your feedback, it can be applied really well. The second area that I think you have some opportunities in is in humor. I think with humor, you know, after we laugh, the next thing that happens, we listen to. Because we're you know, you just got us excited, got us happy. So now we're going to listen. What's she going to say next? Your best humor, in my opinion, was with the first story. When you had your bike and you were approaching the bike from one side and abductor and you weren't sure and you were going, I mean, I was right there with you. And you might have even had a picture of a bike or someone struggling on a bike behind you. That could have even added a little bit to it. But I loved that. And I think that you had some opportunity with some of your other stories to add in a little bit of humor. Even if it's, you know, 3 words, the first 2 you expect and the third you don't. Or you did use a little bit of premonition, and I liked that. I think that's powerful too. But we like to laugh. It's a serious and important topic, and one that applies to anyone. We all want to belong. We all are longing to belong. So I think look for a couple. I would aim for your key stories and have one piece of humor in that. And the final thing that I would recommend would be a really strong call to action at the end. I feel like, you know, you had so much powerful things and somehow bring it all together and how you're going to effectively make someone else belong when maybe they thought at the beginning they did not. And now they do. So bring that in a little bit. So those would be the things that I would say, you know, you could tweak a little bit. But Mary, I loved it. I think it's powerful, and it really is a topic that goes across all parts of the world, and it goes across all audiences. So I think it is something very worth sharing. Thank you for that. And now I'm going to open it up for round robin. I'd like to know if anyone else would like to add feedback. Kyle.
Of course I want to add feedback. So Mary, there's a lot of good stuff here, and I agree with Karen on a lot of it. I love the fact that you scooched in, and I think you should really exaggerate that word because it's a fun word. How can I deliver the most value in the least amount of time? You talked about belonging, and you also talked about making clubs welcoming. They're not exactly the same thing. I would encourage you to focus on one or the other. If you want to focus on helping people to feel like they belong, focus on that and avoid and reframe the advice to the club, going from making them welcoming to making them help people feel like they belong. You had a bunch of little examples of things clubs did that made people feel like they didn't belong. I would encourage you to tell a micro story. And by a micro story, I'm talking about like 1 or 2 sentences. You know, I was at this meeting where the guest had to sit behind me against the wall because there weren't any chairs around the table. Micro story, no development, but it makes the point, and then you can lay it out. My single biggest suggestion is your story about the gentleman in the chair. When you're sitting and you've given him food and he's struggling with it, there's your feeling about not belonging, and then his feeling about not belonging. And this is an opportunity for your 2 feelings of not belonging to snowball into isolation or to burst it. And all of that's the internal drama going on in your head. But I would encourage you to take a moment to explore that.
Thank you, Kyle. Great specific examples. Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. I always cherish the time to lambaste Mary. And I do agree with Karen when you said Mary has of strong attributes. And I think after that first story, I think she now has very strong hip abductors. And I would have liked to have seen those as a prop, maybe in the story. Now, here's what I would say on that first story. I love that first story, Mary. And let's go to Mark Twain. He says, don't ever let the truth get in the way of a good story. I think you told us there wasn't anybody else in the room. I think when you're trying to, scooch and shimmy into the equipment, maybe some of your clothing comes off, and now you got to get this clothing back. Give us that humor of that whole thing going on. But I love that first story. And that second story is a really touching story about the guy in the chair. And so, but I really loved your story. Thank you.
Any other feedback? Cynthia.
Next time, Mary, you said you had a personal trainer. Ask them to show you how to use the machines. That's their job.
Then she wouldn't have a story.
I love it. Bob.
Mary, I liked a couple things. How I liked how you filled your screen and you kept your focus on the camera, which is really hard to do in Zoom. I thought that really stood out to me. And the engineers, how you love the organization, they love your speaking skills because they're terrified of speaking.
So true. I want to open for our guests to speak as well and give feedback. We welcome feedback from all. Joel, did you have some comments to share?
Thanks, Karen. I mean, I think it was a really good, well elaborate speech. I was totally engaged and I was into it. In terms of comments, I'll definitely lean on to what others had to say. But yeah, other than that, great preparation and great efforts put into delivering the speech.
Thank you. Any other feedback for Mary? Emmy.
I just have a quick comment in that I've never heard the term happy clapper. So I didn't, I know, but I certainly knew what it was, but I didn't know why that was good or bad or, so I just didn't get it.
We used to share a wall where my meeting room was before our retirement. We used to share a wall with people in finance department, and they would come out about lunchtime and they're like, oh, it's the Happy Clappers meeting again.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, any last comments from anyone? If not, I will turn it over to our second evaluator for the evening, which is Kyle, who will be evaluating Helen's speech. Any last comments? Okay, then I turn it over to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Karen. Helen, thank you. You're practicing a keynote that you're going to give when you go to the conference in Japan. There's a lot of good material here. I like it. If we change nothing else, if you change nothing else, I think it'll be a success. But let's see if we can fine tune it a little bit. I am going to say right up front, I don't like your introduction, but that's a bigger issue than I can cover in 5 minutes here. I would have to spend the whole time on your intro. What I'm going to do, if I may, is with your permissions, I'll write you a draft intro and send it to you, and you let me know what you think. Because your intro doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. That's the last thing I'll say there. Your speech was very relatable. I was going to say that you started out by saying several sentences in a row. I don't remember exactly what they were, but they were dramatic sentences, and I wanted you to pause between them. And you didn't pause very long. But then you had this great pause, wonderful pause, before you said before you told us about looking in at the hero in the mirror. So you clearly have the pausing skill. I just want you to use it more often. You have PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint looks good. I'm not convinced you need it. The PowerPoint didn't add enough value there, I think. I'm assuming your audience is going to know who Bilbo Baggins is, or Frodo Baggins, and Iron Man, and Luke Skywalker without you showing pictures of them. So you could just leave the PowerPoint out, and that way you don't have to stop, bring it up, close it down and whatnot. And your three things, the mindset and mission, and I forget the first one, membership. Those three are simple enough. You, again, don't need the PowerPoint for it. You could use it. I'm not saying not to, but I like to limit my PowerPoint to things that are only visual, not words, and only when the visual is more impactful than you doing it in words. So I'm not convinced yet. I like your three tasks: the membership, the mindset, the mission. It works. I believe you were talking about membership being the support mechanism. I wanted you to state that a little more clearly. Membership is your support, or something along those lines. I think you talked around it without stating it explicitly. And one of the things I try to do is I never assume that my audience is going to get it unless I tell them explicitly what I mean. You talked about challenges for us. I challenge you to do this. And it worked. And you had a challenge in the middle, and then you had a challenge at the end. I like that. You didn't save all your challenge up for the end. But at the end, you should remind us what that middle challenge was, because we will have forgotten it from your other content. There were moments. Oh, one of the things you did, you gave us the quote about coming out of the storm. And obviously, that's an important message to you. You repeated it. I like that. And then there was another thing you talked about later on, and you repeated it. So it's okay to repeat those messages, and it worked well for you. In terms of your storytelling, one of the things I loved you talked about signing up to be this, this district director for, the easy win, the best district and conference and everything else. And then you talked about how everything fell apart and COVID and tough and you got kind of whiny. And that was perfect. That was perfect because that's what's going on in your head. And it brings that, and it brings out humor and it makes you relatable. I wouldn't hesitate to get whinier. Really like, little 3-year-old stomping around. I had one phrase that bothered me. You're talking when you're introducing your 3 steps: membership, mindset, and mission. You said these are the 3 pillars that help hold us up above others. And it's the above others I have a problem with. See, I don't think of leaders as being above others. So, and maybe it's just the context. Maybe it's my context. I would just say it helps hold us up because it helps hold everyone up. Nitpicky, very nitpicky thing. You had a picture of Bilbo surrounded by dwarves, and you called it a fellowship. Frodo had a fellowship, and it was eight other folks. Bilbo was just traveling with a pack of dwarves. But I'm a little bit of a Lord of the Rings nerd. So let's see. When you were talking about you in mission, you talked about being district director, listening to the club. That was a very effective story. Listening to the club, how they started coming around, and there was an opportunity there, if you want to take the time to do it, to get into the drama going in your own head. You're at this meeting, you don't know what to do, they're depressed, and then you ask this question, and things start to change as they start demonstrating enthusiasm. They start thinking past the misery they're in now, and all you're doing is listening. They're being heard because you're listening, and it changes their mindset and it changes yours. So there's an opportunity to tell that story if you want to take the time to do that. You did say towards the end that we are the storm. I thought I was kind of like, storms have been challenges up till now, and now you're asking, it worked. I was thinking maybe we're the eye of the storm, but I'm not going to argue with your metaphor there. There's a slight opportunity for humor right at the end because you're saying this is your mission. And my mind immediately went to Mission Impossible. This is your mission if you choose to accept it. This speech will self-destruct in 5 seconds. That's where my mind went. Being a bit of a movie buff too. That's my suggestions. I think the speech works. I think with a few tweaks, it could work even better. I'm going to open the floor for round robin feedback. Who else has feedback for Helen? Mary. No lambasting.
No, of course not. Helen, oh my gosh, there were so many things I really enjoyed about your speaking. First, this is the really first time I think I've heard you really give a speech that had so much passion. I've only heard you speak one other time, actually, but this was phenomenal. I got to see a whole different side of you, and I loved it. The power of questions is what really struck me about your speech. A couple of different times, you lean in and you ask questions, and I think you used another good speech mechanism, the power of 3. I think you asked each time 3 questions. But the most powerful question that you asked was when you went to this meeting and you painted this great word picture of how depressed everybody was and down they were. And it was all online, of course, and Wuhan was the epicenter of the epicenter, right, of the pandemic. So everything happened there before any of us really had experienced anything. And you said, what will you do when this is over? And it painted a picture of hope. And suddenly people started sharing what they hoped for more than what got them down. And it turned everything around. I just thought that was the power of the question there was wonderful. I loved your voice and how you emphasized things, especially at the end. I love that you took time to develop the phrasing and share it with us. I am assuming you will be speaking in English to a Japanese audience, and because it's the common language of Toastmasters, your choice of words was perfect in its power and in their simplicity. Well done on that. I think I'm wondering if as opposed to what Kyle said, like, are you using some of the images that you use for us tonight, or because we're an American audience and you'll change the images for Japanese? Okay, I thought so, yeah. So that's all. I want to make sure other people have a chance. Thank you, Ellen.
Cheryl, did you raise? Oh, Karen. Okay.
Thank you so much, Helen. I've heard many people speak about Toastmasters and the importance of Toastmasters and why we should be involved and the difference. But what I took out of yours was actually motivating me to want to make a difference. And that says a lot, because it takes a bit to, I've been around Toastmasters for a while. So, when someone comes up and says, wait a minute, I want to get out there and I want to make a difference. Your call to action at the end was very, very powerful, where you said, it's not about this, it's about this. It's not about this, it's about this. That really touched me and made me feel like, you're right, it is, that does matter. We get caught up in the minutia of the things that don't go well and the things that are frustrating, but that doesn't matter. What matters is this, it's your mindset, it's these things. And I felt your passion. So you motivated me at the end. I loved that. As far as recommendations, I felt a little bit of up and down with your story, because I felt like it was almost separate speeches. You had the first speech that was a little bit educational, and you had that, and then you had a call to action. I thought you were done. And then you kept going, and I thought you were done at one other point. So maybe to transition that, because everything does in the end pull together, either use your repeating phrase, and that could be embrace the storm. Or it could be your 3 areas that you want them to take away. What is it you want your audience in the end to take away? And you can use that repetitively to bind those different stories together. So I don't think, oh, she's done, and then she keeps going, because then I was a little bit confused. But oh my goodness, I was motivated and I felt your passion. That will be a wonderful speech. And if the Japanese audience wouldn't know some of those movies, it sounds like you maybe were going to shift them to ones they knew. So that's important, that the audience would know them. We would, but maybe they wouldn't. So thank you.
Go ahead, Lee.
I'll go ahead and give a couple comments to Helen, then we'll go ahead and I'll take it over and do the general evaluation. So I really liked all the emotion you had, Helen. I've heard you speak once before. You kind of surprised me today with your level of energy and your emotion. You took us down, you took us up. And I do agree with Karen. There was something I wanted to say. I wanted to hear a mantra throughout your keynote, because it's so long. That mantra keeps us in it. And I don't want to give it away where, Karen's going to say, embrace the storm. I'm going to say, the storm is coming. The storm is coming. The storm is coming. And at the end of your keynote, you say, embrace the storm. So, but I loved it. It was great. Any final comments for Helen? Okay, let's go ahead and go on into the general evaluation. Our meeting started on time. We're pretty much on track, maybe a couple minutes off here, but I'm sure we'll catch up by the end of the meeting. What I really loved about this meeting are a couple of points. One is we had the perfect meeting. Everybody in this room has spoken already, and that makes it the perfect meeting when everybody in the Toastmaster room takes the opportunity to speak. And I really love our evaluations today. We had two really strong keynotes, and everybody in this club always gives very precise, specific points for our speakers, and it's never critical, and it never makes the speaker feel bad. We're always saying, here's a point, here's my suggestion, here's how you might want to be able to use it to improve. And I just love the way we do that in this club, with the exception of me, of course. I like to lambaste certain people, especially Mary and Helen, because international directors, they just have a target on their back, and so they set themselves up to be lambasted. But other than that, I think we're doing a great job today, and I'm going to go ahead and give it to Phil, who has a lot to say about his grammarian report.
He's going to lambaste us.
So they're pulling out all stops here. Yes, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator Lee and fellow Toastmasters. I'm going to focus most of my comments on the two main speakers, just in the interest of time, mostly in the interest of time. First, Mary, a couple of the phrases I thought really caught my ear were I loved how you did the happy clapper explanation after your speech. I thought, wouldn't that be a great little micro story, as Kyle calls it, inside your story, because it made me laugh and was very descriptive. When you were coming up to the exercise machine and you couldn't figure out how to get on the exercise machine, my mind went back to a child's story that we used to sing, where I'm going on a bear hunt. I came to a mountain, or I came to grass or something, or came to a jungle. I couldn't go over it. And so that's where my mind went right to that. And I thought, if it was the right audience, maybe that'd be it would fit in somehow in your story. One opportunity that I would like to point out is, I thought cringeworthy was very descriptive. It also might be an opportunity to look at your audience and think, I'm not sure, maybe it's universal, but maybe there might be people in the audience that don't really relate to what cringeworthy is. Not that you shouldn't use it, but it might be another micro story that describes what a cringeworthy moment is for your audience. That was great. A great opportunity, though. Helen, a couple of phrases that really caught my ear in your speech. I also really thought the hero in the mirror was extremely powerful and very memorable. Another phrase you used that I thought was descriptive and memorable was when you described your new boss. You said it was like walking on, I think you said something like it's like I was walking on ice and the ice had just broken. And I thought that was a real nice descriptive phrase. One opportunity for you, and it's also a strength I think you turned it into, towards the end of the second third of your speech, you had a kind of a long, awkward pause that I wasn't sure if you had lost your place in your speech or forget where you're going. The strength of it, though, was that you turned it right around. You didn't stumble. You simply refreshed and reset and got going again. So I thought that was both something to work on, but also a great demonstration of what we can do to make one of those awkward pauses still work in your speech. One for both of you was, I don't know if you planned this or not, but you both used the phrase longing for belonging. And I thought, well, you two must have got together ahead of time and made this all fit together nicely. So kudos to both of you. Now for the word of the day. I thought Mary was going to have it with two uses of the word of the day. Kyle used it twice, snuck one in there at the end. But Lee, I heard you use our word of the day 3 times. Congratulations on lambasting your word of the day. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Phil. That was a great report. Let's go on to ME, who's going to give us our timers report. Maybe we can see a nice picture of ME instead of a clock. There she is. Yes.
Okie dokie. All right. For the timing of our meeting. Let's see. We started off with Mary, and Mary's talk went 21 minutes and 19 seconds. Very nice. And then we had our second speaker, Helen, and she went 26 minutes and 46 seconds. So they both fell within their time period. Then we moved to the evaluators with Karen at 5:51. It's hard to give a great evaluation and stick within the limits, isn't it? And then Kyle, 8 minutes and 18 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you know, she had a 25-minute talk, you know? All right.
That's why
I think
Kyle's
he
a
gave
DTM.
value. All right, so our round robins for Mary, 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and for our second round robin, it was just 3 minutes. Great. Then Lee's evaluation of the meeting was a minute, very succinct. And our grammarian report was 3:47.
Right. Thank you very much, ME. Yeah, I had to, be the yin to Kyle's yang. He is a DTM, and we all know that is don't time me. I'm Kyle Hall here, okay? We got lots to say here. Okay, but other than that, we're going to get right back on track. I'm going to turn it right back to our illustrious Toastmaster of the evening, Cheryl Marks, who did a great job. Let's give it for Cheryl. I think this is her first time leading our club in a meeting. Excellent. Thank you, Cheryl. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Lee. I appreciate your general evaluation tonight. And this is what's great to be at the meeting today. And I'm glad that Kyle put me in and that I didn't turn around and take myself back out. So I'm glad to be here. It kind of lifted me up a little bit. And it was a wonderful meeting. 2 great speakers. And I appreciate our guests being here. I think one of them was Joel. And I hope you enjoyed yourself, Joel. Do you have anything to say about the meeting tonight?
It's been a wonderful experience, definitely. I just love the way how like the vibe is, and like the structure of the meeting, very organized, and seems like I can take a lot back, especially how to improve the humorous part of the speech, and humor definitely eases any tense situation, so that's very key there.
All right. Thank you very much, Joel. You're welcome back anytime. And we always love to have new members too, but we're not forcing you to be a member. We just say that you can come back if you want to visit again. And it was really good to see. Just a second, my computer is messing up here. Okay. And it was good to see Bob tonight. Glad you could come and visit us, and we appreciate you coming anytime. And so I think that's it. I'm going to turn it back over, I believe, to our president, Mary. Is that what's going to happen here?